Peace, family. It's your brother, Marc Lamont Hill. You're watching the Marc Lamont Hill official YouTube channel. Welcome to Night School. It's not a podcast. It's not a TV show. It is a global classroom. And here on Night School, we talk about the heaviest issues, the biggest topics, the loftiest ideas, and we break it all down. I got to tell y'all something. I'm only telling y'all because y'all family. I am embarrassed. I've done this before, but never this bad. I know y'all thinking, why did he start 15 minutes late? I swear to you on my mama, I started 12 minutes ago and forgot to hit the start button. I was literally talking to myself for the last 12 minutes. And I looked up, someone said, look in the comments and let me see how people are responding to what I said. And I looked and saw nobody was commenting. I was like, nobody's even responding to what I said. And then I looked up and I realized I hadn't hit the go live button. And I'm embarrassed. I mean, I was going in. I mean, it's kind of nice to get a second shot at this thing. But wow. That's all I can say. I played myself. But on that note, there are a couple things I want to say real fast. First of all, thank you all for the love and the support you've given me on the channel. This week has been extraordinary. More people are watching. The channel is growing quickly. Our community is building fast, and we got a lot of new members here. I want to shout out some of these new members. Elanon became a member. Musa S became a member. Jane Farris became a member. Big LeMayo became a member. Jeremiah Muhammad just was generous enough to gift us 5 memberships. That means 5 people are going to have access to us for at least a month. S. Conway became a member. I'm so grateful to all of y'all for joining the family and expanding the family. It means so much. Abel said, if you want free tech YouTube lessons, we got, I might need them, bro. Because when I tell you, I was this wild. Again, I'm embarrassed. But we're gonna keep things going because there's so much to cover. There's a lot of ground to cover, and I want to make sure that we cover all of it because, again, it's a big night, big week. I had the opportunity this week to travel the country a little bit. I had the opportunity to visit the Columbia campus where the students are encamped. I had the opportunity to travel down to DC and do some interviews. And tonight, I'm just actually returning from a celebration of our dear brother Mumia Abu-Jamal. Many of you know Mumia Abu-Jamal. He is a political prisoner. He is an author. He is one of the most courageous and powerful voices in the world. And Mumia is somebody whose life we continue to fight for as he is a political prisoner. If you don't know Mumia, he's a Philadelphia brother. You know, he was born 70 years ago now. And Mumia, he grew up in Philly. He grew up thinking and organizing. He joined the Black Panther Party when he was young, I believe 14 years old. He was involved in cultural struggle, political struggle. He is just such a beautiful brother. He spent some time in 69, I believe, in New York, and in 70 in the Black Panther Party, working and building and growing. He very early in his life was on the FBI surveillance list, the watch list, the COINTELPRO, all this stuff. But Mumia continued to be a journalist. He covered the 1978 confrontation between MOVE, which was a kind of back to nature naturalist communal organization in West Philadelphia at the time, in Powelton Village, and the Philadelphia police, which at the time were run by Frank Rizzo, one of the most notoriously racist and violent mayors and police chiefs that this city's ever had. And he covered the case. He covered the wrongful conviction and wrongful incarceration of those 9 people, the MOVE 9 they came to be known, who had this confrontation with law enforcement. He was a voice of radio. He was a voice of print. And in 1981, he was arrested for the murder of Officer Daniel Faulkner. Now, according to all the evidence, he's innocent of that crime. He did not murder Daniel Faulkner. They had mismatched guns. They had conflicting reports, changing police records, all the stuff. And then the Judge Sabo, who's over the trial, also participated in all kinds of acts that were both prejudicial and illegal. At the end of the day, Mumia Abu-Jamal is both factually innocent, but also legally not guilty. The state simply hasn't made its case, and the state never made its case against Mumia. And so we continue to fight. Over a decade ago, Mumia was removed from death row, but now he's on slow death row. He's get his life in prison for a crime he didn't commit. While he sat there, he's lost his wife. He's lost his daughter. He's lost so many. He's lost so much, but he continues to fight. And at the age of 70, the fact that Mumia Abu-Jamal is alive and fighting and writing and building shows that we're on to something. They can't kill us all, and they didn't kill Mumia. And I couldn't be more proud to be his friend, more proud to be his little brother. I couldn't be more proud to be his co-author. We wrote a book called The Classroom in the Cell, and of course, that book has translated into a podcast that we have right here on the channel called The Classroom in the Cell podcast. And I'm honored to do with him every single week. So just blessings to Mumia. We love you. We need you. We're standing with you. And I'm yelling free you till I see you, my brother. You coming home. You are absolutely coming home. All right, family, on to another story that I think, I don't know, it baffles the mind. President Joseph Robinette Biden, y'all know him as Joe Biden. He, like all presidents, is going to be speaking at college graduation. Vice president speaks somewhere, president speaks somewhere, all the senators be speaking somewhere. It is not uncommon for presidents to speak. But this year, it was announced that President Biden would be speaking at Morehouse College. That's right. Joe Biden announced that he would be speaking at graduation at Morehouse College. Morehouse announced that President Biden would be speaking at the institution. Morehouse and Joe Biden this year is a strange choice. Now, let's be clear. I understand why Joe Biden would want to do it. It's an election year. What better place than to stand in the tradition of Martin Luther King, his alma mater? What better place to be than go to an HBCU, and not just any historically Black college or university, but go to one of the most celebrated, one of the most revered. It's in that kind of upper echelon of not just HBCUs, but bourgeois, professional class HBCUs. You know, there's over 100 HBCUs. But when people say HBCUs, they usually ain't talking about Dell State. They usually ain't talking about Langston. They usually ain't talking about Cheney. They talk about Hampton, Howard, Morehouse, Spelman. You know, that's the crew, among a couple others. And so for him, this is an opportunity to speak right to the Black middle class. This is an opportunity to get votes. I understand why Joe Biden wants to speak at Morehouse. That to me is a no-brainer. The question is, why the hell does Morehouse want Joe Biden to be their commencement speaker? Now, he's the president. Every institution loves to pat themselves on the back. They love to say, look how awesome we are. And what better way to look awesome than to have the president there? Most people can't get the president there. So him showing up there, I get it from a market standpoint. I get it from a branding standpoint. Oh, we got the president here. It's going to make some people enroll, and enrollments have been lower in the last few years. It's going to make people enroll. It's going to make the money go up, might make donations go up. There's a lot of reasons for them to do it. So then, Mark, what's the issue? What's the issue? The issue is Joe Biden is a terrible choice. Joe Biden has demonstrated in the last 6 months and certainly the last year that he is not in the tradition of Morehouse. He right now is complicit in genocide in Gaza. Right now at this moment, let's just look at that. Let's just look at the fact that he is complicit in a war. I've taught at Morehouse. I've attended Morehouse. I have been to many Morehouse graduations, family, friends. There's a beauty and a sacredness to Morehouse's graduation. There's something extraordinary about Morehouse's graduation. They say over the heads of her students, right? Morehouse holds a crown that they challenge you to be tall enough to reach, to grow into, right? You grow into it. I butchered it a little bit, but the idea here is that there's a lofty goal and then you grow into it. That means that there's a moral aspiration. There's an ethical aspiration. The quote is, over the heads of her students, Morehouse holds a crown that she challenges them to grow tall enough to wear. Look at me, too funky for myself. I said it right. That's by the great Howard Thurman, Morehouse class of 1923, by the way. Over the heads of her students, Morehouse holds a crown that she challenges them to grow tall enough to wear. That means there's a moral and spiritual and personal growth. There's a political maturation. There's something to be said about being a Morehouse graduate. How do you bring a war criminal into Morehouse in the midst of the very war that makes him a criminal? How do you bring Joe Biden in at a moment where the students, this isn't just an abstract thing, where the students at Morehouse themselves are protesting. The students themselves at Morehouse are saying, we hate this war. This is wrong. I've watched students stand up and fight against programming, against curricular decisions, against all kinds of things at Morehouse that reinforce settler colonialism, that reinforce Zionism, that reinforce the genocide in Gaza. They've disrupted Crown Forum, which is a big thing at Morehouse. It's like a weekly assembly in the King Chapel. This is not a small thing. So here's what Morehouse does. The alumni at Morehouse are very, very active. And they said, we don't like this. So they started circulating an online letter that condemns the administration, the president, the provost, etc., for inviting President Biden. And they've been getting signatures to pressure Morehouse's president, David Thomas, to rescind the invitation. They're asking Morehouse to take back the invitation to the president of the United States. I love it. I love it. Here's what they said. I'm gonna read it to you. Not the whole letter, but just part. They said, in inviting President Biden to campus, the college affirms a cruel standard that complicity in genocide merits no sanction from the institution that produced one of the towering advocates for nonviolence of the 20th century. They said that Martin Luther King, the most famous Morehouse alum, his stance that war is a hell that diminishes humanity as a whole was something that the college was now ignoring. He said, if the college cannot affirm this noble tradition of justice by rescinding its invitation to President Biden, then the college should reconsider its attachment to Dr. King. I have never been more proud of Morehouse than at that moment. I have never been more proud. They said, if you won't rescind your invitation to Biden, then you should reconsider your attachment to Dr. King. Don't pretend to be in Dr. King's tradition, which is anti-imperialism, nonviolence, anti-militarism. Don't say you about that life. And you bring in somebody who literally this week just tried to send and successfully send $26 billion to Israel. I think 17 billion of which, maybe, I'll check the number, but a big chunk of it is military aid, $16-17 billion in military aid to Israel. If that's the game we playing, funding a genocide, vetoing ceasefires, refusing to hold Israel accountable for anything. If that's the game we play in, then you can't expect to be invited to Dr. King's legacy. You shouldn't be getting invitations to King's Chapel or King's University, King's College, his alma mater. Can't expect any of that. No, it's wrong. So what do you do now? Well, I'll tell you one thing, Morehouse ain't taking it back. They invited faculty to an online forum where they could discuss how they feel. This is some classic university administrative bullshit, right? He says, y'all can come, we're gonna discuss all of this. He said, but when they sent the invitation, here's what he said, President Brown. Excuse me, Kendrick Brown, the provost. He said, please know going into this conversation that the college does not plan to rescind its accepted invitation to President Biden, i.e., y'all can come, y'all can complain, but please be clear, we still getting the president. And that's deeply frustrating. That's deeply problematic. It's deeply disappointing. It's equally disappointing that Raphael Warnock, the senator from Georgia, another one of them progressives, except for Palestine people, he's honored that Morehouse is going to have him. He tweeted today that he was honored that Biden was showing up. That of course, is his alma mater. He also has been a complete 180 progressive, except for Palestine person. He was pro-Palestine before he got elected, and the moment he was even thinking about the Senate, he flipped the script. It's embarrassing. But this speaks to a serious problem with the Black misleadership class, a serious problem with HBCUs. I've been to a lot of HBCUs. I ain't been to a Black college yet. So many of them sell out, and they sell out for so cheap. Somebody here wrote, getting big cash from AIPAC. That's probably true. I know when I worked at Morehouse, there were certainly phone calls for me to stop I was literally called and told to stop criticizing Israel at Morehouse. So that's definitely true. That's an actual fact. But I don't even think, Nicole, that that's what this is. I don't even think it's that. I think that Negroes love proximity to power, proximity to whiteness, proximity to what they perceive to be the pathway out. And too often, these institutions fashion themselves as being, when I started at Morehouse as a freshman, you're going to the Harvard of the South. Now, one, it just ain't true. But two, that shouldn't be the vision. That shouldn't be the goal. I don't want to be the Harvard of the South. I want to be the Morehouse of the South. I want to be the Morehouse, period. Now, I get there's something embarrassing about resending an invitation to the president, but it would send a message. The question is, what would Dr. King do? Since y'all say y'all are King's tradition, y'all are an articulation of his worldview. You are the realization of a dream come true. If that's the case, then who we gonna be? So I encourage, one, everyone to keep their eyes glued to this, but very, very specifically, I want to see that Morehouse graduation footage. I want to see them booing. I want to see them walking out. I want to, let me take that back. I don't want them to boo. I actually don't think that's in our tradition, but I think they should silently walk out. I think they should stand up and turn their backs. And this is why I'm frustrated with Morehouse, because you put these people, these graduates, in a tough spot because their mamas and daddies just want to see them graduate. Their grandmama and them definitely just want to see their baby walk across the stage and get that diploma. And quiet as kept, they love them some Joe Biden, them grandmamas and them aunties and them. So now by doing this, you're making the students, you're creating a distraction on the biggest day of their lives. And it's almost as if they are banking on the fact that we won't say anything and we'll just go with the flow because it's easier that way, which is the same logic that Democrats use to make you vote for them. Oh, we'll just go with the flow. It's better than Trump. And that logic is scary. It's dangerous. It's frustrating. And it speaks to a broader and a deeper problem. I'll just say that. So shout out to the people at Morehouse. Shout out to everybody on the alumni list who actually resisted, who actually stood up for something. I appreciate it. I admire you. I love you. Keep on fighting. All right, y'all. On to another story. There's so much stuff going on in the world I want to talk to y'all about. I just want to talk to y'all about. All right. Many of you know that a couple of months ago, in fact, the very day that the International Court of Justice determined that there was a plausible genocide going on in the Gaza Strip by Israel, Israel announced that UNRWA, the UN Relief Works Agency, the primary agency devoted to caring for Palestinian people and specifically Palestinian refugees, that organization was accused of being responsible for October 7th. They were told that this UNRWA organization had ties to October 7th, that numerous employees were involved in terror and terrorist attacks. They announced that the organization should be immediately defunded. Well, as you know, many organizations or many nation states did just that. Germany, the United States, Canada, France, they all stepped up and said that they were going to immediately defund UNRWA. Now, at the time, many of us, myself included, said, where's the evidence? They didn't offer any. They offered a little portfolio, a little folder that some people looked at that had I won't even say the evidence wasn't persuasive. I'm going to say there wasn't no evidence. It was terrible. But the United States, again, and other nations continued to fund lots of things, but not UNRWA. Now, this would be bad no matter what, right? UNRWA immediately fired the 7 employees that were accused of committing to the crime had been committed because they didn't want to disrupt the flow of cash and resources, because they understand that UNRWA is the lifeline for so many Palestinians. It's how they get food. It's how they get healthcare. It's how they get housing. It's how they get all kinds of stuff. So it made entire sense to do it. It wasn't an admission of guilt. Just again, to reiterate, it was an acknowledgement that, we have to do something here. We have to do something here so that no one gets hurt. Well, we're a couple months later, and investigations have been done. The United Nations, in fact, did an independent review. They commissioned an independent review. Let me be very clear. The UN didn't investigate itself. They ain't the LAPD and they ain't Israel. They actually commissioned someone else to do it. And the report came back. It was released a couple of days ago. It was led by former French Foreign Minister Catherine Colonna. It just determined that there's absolutely no evidence to support the accusation that a, quote, significant number of employees were involved in terrorism or members of terrorist organizations. It's just not true. Let me be clear. They're not just saying that they disagree with Israel's evidence. They're saying that Israel never provided adequate evidence to even make the claim, which is what we said back then. The evidence folder was thin. There was nothing in it. But despite that, more than a dozen countries cut UNRWA funding to the tune of more than $400 $150 million. This is after the accusations that came out in February. Right here in the United States, Congress suspended it at least until next March of 2025. So this was a huge accusation. And it was a baseless accusation. So, the question for me is the why of it. First, why did Israel make this allegation? Well, that seems clear to me. Israel has always hated UNRWA. They've always hated the UN Relief Works Agency. They've always been at odds with it. Certainly in the Netanyahu era, they've been super at war with UNRWA, but they were before that as well. But there's another reason. Israel had all eyes on it in January. The country was being focused on because South Africa, the beautiful country of South Africa, had the courage and the wisdom and the temerity to file in the International Court of Justice a case for genocide. Now, Israel has always said, well, we didn't do it. And then when you say, well, you did do it, they go, well, whoever said we did do it or who provides evidence, we don't trust the evidence, and these people are out to get us. It's personal. The UN hates us. The UNHCR hates us. The Human Rights Watch hates us. Amnesty International hates us. Everybody hates us. And so the timing of this was quite fascinating. That the day that the Hague, the UN, the International Court of Justice is making an argument that there's a very plausible case that Israel is committing genocide, and they impose emergency measures to stop the genocide. Suddenly, this mysterious charge against UNRWA comes out. Now, UNRWA is a UN organization, so they're basically saying, look, the UN is out to get us. We just proved that UN has terrorists in the Relief Works Agency, and therefore you can't trust the UN, which means you can't trust this ICJ decision. That's what they were going for. That's what they were arguing. Strategically, it makes sense. And let me be clear, Israel's not alone. The United States, France, Germany, Australia, lots of colonial or settler colonial nations do similar things, right? This isn't some Israeli conspiracy. This is just powerful nations do what they can to avoid accountability in international bodies. So they put a basically smear campaign against UNRWA, which caused UNRWA to lose funding. When UNRWA loses funding, what happens? Palestinians die. It's really that simple. You lose it, Palestinians die, which they don't care about anyway. So, what do you do? Well, the U.S. had an option. They could have investigated. They said, nope, we're cutting UNRWA immediately. Now, here's the funky part. The United States just got a decision from the ICJ, just heard a decision from the ICJ saying that emergency measures needed to be imposed. They just heard that genocide was plausible, and they still sent money. They still defended Israel. Even today, months later, they're still, again, planning tens of billions of dollars to go into Israel, even after the World Central Kitchen employees were killed, 7 of them, obvious humanitarian violation. Even after hundreds of people standing in places like Duad or the Kuwaiti roundabout in Gaza got killed trying to get humanitarian assistance, even though everybody, it's almost universally indisputable and accepted that humanitarian aid has been blocked into Gaza. We know all of that. And yet the United States still gives money to Israel that's being used to underwrite this genocide. On the other hand, as opposed to Israel, where there's plenty of evidence of impropriety, malfeasance, and contravention of international law, there's no evidence against UNRWA in that report that's substantive. And yet, they immediately cut the funding to UNRWA. What does that tell you? What are we supposed to learn from that? That's the question. Well, I think it's obvious. There's a double standard. Palestinians get treated differently. There's a double standard. And the fact that now, to no one's surprise who studies this issue, turns out UNRWA wasn't committing these grave terrorist acts. Turns out that was all BS. But that doesn't bring the Palestinians back who died. That doesn't bring back the old resources. That doesn't bring back the time that was lost. Somebody's got to be held accountable for that. The U.S. literally keeps sending money to fund a genocide while starving agencies that help the people who are being the victims of the genocide. If that's the case, how is the United States not complicit in a war? How is the United States not complicit in a war crime? How is the United States not complicit in genocide? How is the United States not complicit in ethnic cleansing? How? The answer is it ain't possible. You just can't square that circle. We are complicit. This country is. And the president is specifically complicit. Take it or leave it, or invite him to your university to give a graduation speech. Whatever you're going to do, it is pure hypocrisy. Marc Adam Khalid, you are correct. It is complete hypocrisy. All right, y'all. We're going to take a quick break. We'll be back in about 30 seconds with more from Night School.
Right? You make her happy, so you'll be all right. And happy wife normally is about happy life for me. Right, that's what I'm saying. It ain't about her, it's about you.
So Van says that because Jewish people showed up for Black Americans during the Civil Rights era, he now feels compelled to stand with them now. Let me be clear.
What's the white liberal ideology I'm following?
I'm not saying you.
No, that's what you said. So I'm saying, which one?
No one is free until we are all free. There is no room for any injustice.
Right? You make her happy, so you'll be all right. And happy wife normally is about happy life for me. Right, that's what I'm saying. It ain't about her, it's about you.
So Van says that because Jewish people showed up for Black Americans during the Civil Rights era, he now feels compelled to stand with them now. Let me be clear.
What's the white liberal ideology I'm following?
I'm not saying you.
No, that's what you said. So I'm saying, which one?
No one is free until we are all free. There is no room for any injustice. All right, family, welcome back to Night School. We are back. And I want to start with a story that I think is interesting. For those that don't know, if you haven't been following the rap wars, there has been a lot of rap beef over the last month, and it all started when Kendrick Lamar let the chopper spray out of nowhere. He jumped on a song called Like That, and with Metro Boomin and Future, and he came for Drake, he came for J. Cole. He was committed to chaos. He said, ain't no big three, it's just big me. But didn't stop there, of course. J. Cole responded and then ultimately withdrew from the battle for reasons that he explained, noble reasons. And then Drake clapped back. Rick Ross jumped in. But Drake did the thing that Drake does, just like he did with me. You're not just going to get charged up. You're going to get back to back. You're not just going to get one song. You're going to get two. And so now Kendrick Lamar is on Drake's list. The first song, Drake went after everybody from The Weeknd to Rick Ross to Kendrick to whoever else was around. The second time, though, just like with back to back, Drake says, nah, I'm coming for you, Kendrick. You started this thing. Why you ain't rapping? I need you to rap. I need you to have an actual response here. So he comes out and makes this song that I'm not going to play because I don't want a copyright violation. But he basically makes a song in AI. Not Allen Iverson, but artificial intelligence. He uses the voice of Tupac and the voice of Snoop, and then a third verse from himself, basically commanding Kendrick to rap. I mean, look, some people thought it was corny. Some people thought it was innovative. Some people was like, it would be corny except for when Drake does it. Some people say it will be cool except for if Drake does it. I'm not here to analyze the song right now, but there is something to be said about the fact that he used Tupac's voice. And again, Tupac is Kendrick's hero, and Drake basically used his hero against him. Had his hero in his voice, although it's Drake's rapping and Drake is doing the rapping, they just used the Tupac artificial intelligence filter. I don't know how they do all that stuff. All I know is it sounded like Tupac was telling Kendrick he ain't shit. Well, whether you think it's clever or not, I can tell you the Tupac estate did not find it clever. They came for Drake today and they threatened to sue the Canadian rapper. Now, the question is, how serious are they about it? I don't know. I can't say. What I do know is they didn't like it. They issued a statement that said, the estate is deeply dismayed and disappointed by your unauthorized use of Tupac's voice and personality. The estate would never have given its approval for this use. And earlier in that same statement, he said the song was a, quote, blatant abuse of the legacy of one of the greatest hip hop artists of all time. Now, some people are going to say, well, is that big of a deal? Maybe Drake didn't know. Maybe he wasn't trying to be disrespectful. All of that could be true in the abstract sense, but it's not true. He did it because he wanted to do it. You notice he didn't release it as a single on iTunes. He put it on Instagram because he didn't want the copyright. Problem is, stuff like this in the age of digital reproduction is going to get out anyway. So he knows that. Drake is a genius. He puts it out on Instagram knowing people are going to dub it, copy it, repeat it, reproduce it, whatever. So Drake understood that was going to happen. And I get on some underground stuff. Sometimes you don't clear samples. Sometimes you do something that the artist may not care for. Hell, the whole mixtape rapping over somebody else's beat shit is probably on some level not that far outside of this, right? And in all of hip hop history, it ain't been nothing but taking people's records and redoing them in reggae, dub plates. I mean, it's all of it is part of the mix. But Drake did it to Tupac and Snoop, and Snoop ain't gonna say nothing because Snoop don't want to look like a rat. But it's also very interesting because Drake uses, because I'm sure Snoop and Drake rock, they're cool. But Snoop is from the West Coast, and Kendrick is his little homie, is his nephew. So you put Snoop in an awkward position, but Snoop ain't gonna sue. Kendrick, however, wasn't worried about Snoop's diss probably as much as he'd be worried about Tupac's, because Tupac was his hero, although Snoop is big homie. And so the Tupac verse was the one that was necessary for this to be fire, for this to just be over the top, like crazy good. And so he got Pac, but guess what? Tupac's legacy didn't want it. And I guarantee you, I knew Afeni Shakur. Afeni Shakur would have hated that Drake did that. So I'm not mad at them. And people say, well, Drake is doing what he does. Yeah, that's the problem. Drake did the same thing to Halle Berry. He issued a track called Slime You Out with SZA, and they took a picture of Halle Berry from the 2012 Kids' Choice Awards where she was getting slimed. And Drake asked Halle Berry, he reached out and said, can I use this photo? She said no. She said no. Drake used it anyway. Halle Berry said specifically, didn't get my permission. That's not cool. I thought better of him. And later she said it's about principles and integrities, implying he didn't have it. So Drake has a pattern history of violating copyright rules, of taking people's stuff without permission, and and just saying we'll work it out. We'll work it out. It'll get worked out. Well, Halle Berry let it go, as far as I know. I promise you the Tupac legacy, the Tupac estate ain't gonna let it go. So Drake better stand down, disappear that track. Sample's one thing, but to make a verse in Tupac's voice, and here's the thing, I get the innovation piece of it. I get the idea of saying I want to do something nobody's ever done before. I get the idea of saying I want to I just want to be different. I get all of that. And on some level, I respect all of that, right? Because honestly, he did some shit ain't nobody ever done before. And on some like, yo, that was crazy. Tupac is telling you, you need to rap, you need to make another song, you need to fight back. You disrespected the West Coast right now. At that level, I get it, right? It's the greatest troll ever. But you can't just jack people's legacy. You can't just take people's estate. You can't just take the food out of families' mouths. You can't just violate this. I mean, there's rules to this shit. And there's a way that Drake on this issue is just moving like a white man. Like, I'm gonna do what I do, and y'all darkies figure it out later. Now that might be too harsh. You might say I'm being too harsh or I'm reading too much into it. I'm not saying that that's Drake's motivation. I'm not saying anything about what's in Drake's head. I'm only saying that's how it looks. So Drake may see a very, very big lawsuit coming up soon. And that's a warning to all you other people who might think about using AI. Because that's the other piece of this. The world's going to be watching, because it's like Drake did this interesting thing, but he also may have opened the door that people aren't thinking of. Like, how do you battle back against somebody? Now, I heard some interesting uses of AI in rap. Like Beanie Siegel said he's going to make an album using AI technology to replicate his own voice, because he had injuries and things and throat conditions that make it harder to sound like he did on The Truth or The Becoming, or all of his early albums that we all love. I'm a big Beanie Siegel fan. So I ain't mad at that, but using it to sound like somebody you're not, at some point, it's gonna be like, what's about? Do you need talent? If I can just AI my voice, if I can just fake, I can be anybody. Shit, I'm gonna be Luther Vandross and make all the money. So you have to draw lines for tech reasons. You have to draw lines for legal reasons. Hip hop's a competitive art and it's an innovative art. I don't want to see AI cheapen that. So I'm not glad that he's getting sued. I'm not glad or sad that Drake's getting sued. I'm just happy that people are dealing with this now. It's just like the hologram stuff that, again, people try to use Tupac for, because again, nobody wants to let Pac go. Pac was a legend. He was wonderful. He was amazing. He was brilliant. So we all just want pieces of that legacy, whether it's through holograms or whether it's through AI. I think Drake just wanted to troll Kendrick Lamar at that moment, but even he has a deep admiration for Tupac. And so I feel it, I understand it, but the AI, it's just a bridge too far for me. All right, y'all. We'll be right back in 15 seconds with more of Night. All right, family, and we are back. And it is time for the Diddy updates. The night would not be over. There's no full episode of any show if I don't give you somehow an update on what's going on with Diddy. For the last few weeks, Diddy's been in the headlines constantly, from raids on his house to his assistant getting picked up and arrested, to, you know, lawsuits from Lil Rob, to Stevie J riding bikes with him and defending his homie. All of it has been part of the conversation. Cassie saying that she allegedly is willing to cooperate with the authorities. I mean, all of it is a part of the Diddy controversy, the Diddy mess that's happened ever since Cassie filed that initial lawsuit in November of 2023. Diddy's life ain't been the same. Well, it ain't getting better. As you know, Brendan Paul, who is a Diddy associate, he's somebody who is seen as maybe an assistant, maybe a body man, somebody who's, you know, just being a professional who works for Diddy. His main assistant, I think, was the language that was used. Well, he has now been charged with felony drug possession. Now, you might say, what does that have to do with Diddy? Well, according to Lil Rod in his lawsuit, this man, Brendan Paul, is not just your average personal assistant, that he's actually his drug mule, that he's the guy that gets on the plane with the drugs. So if there's an arrest or a search or a raid, that Diddy won't have drugs on him. Rappers do it all the time. You have somebody else who holds the gun in his waist, the coke in their bag, whatever, right? So that you don't get in trouble. Well, Lil Rod in that lawsuit, whether we believe the lawsuit is mostly false or not, and I do believe there's a lot of falsity in that lawsuit, he may have nailed this one right, because he said Brendan Paul got the drugs. And when the feds did the raid, when they started doing the searching, they also did some finding. And you know what they found? They found cocaine. They found cocaine. Say it one more time. They found cocaine inside of his bag, along with a marijuana candy. And so now, all of a sudden, Diddy's assistant, and this is why it's important, Diddy's assistant is facing some real problems. Now, you catch the average person a little coke in a bag on a private plane, they probably throw that fish back in the water, as they say. The feds don't care that much about a random white boy with a little bit of coke in his bag, or a random black rich person with a little bit of coke in their bag. But the fact that they knew to look, and the fact that they found something, that's not a good sign. First, it means the feds are probably doing some scrutinous analysis of you, not to catch your main assistant, but to figure out how to leverage you. So they looking. So if you did it and you hoping this is going to pass, stuff like this makes you think maybe they won't just let it pass. It's scary if you're Diddy. But there's another reason why Diddy should be scared, I think. Now, this is a kid, by the way. Brendan Paul, is a former basketball player. He's 25 years old. He's young. He's athletic. He's probably in his prime of life. He's white. I don't know. He might get the snitching. I'm telling you, this guy is not built for jail. And I don't mean that anybody should be built or is suitable for jail. I'm an abolitionist. I'm just saying there are people who could do 5 years standing on their head. As messed up as that is, the truth is they could handle the years. Then there's Brendan Paul. I just don't think a 25-year-old college former Syracuse basketball player who never been to prison before and is clearly living in a pretty nice protected life with Diddy in terms of the pay, the travel, the exposure to all kinds of shit around the world. I just don't know if he's not going to rat, because the feds are going to go to him. They're not going to say, hey, we just want to give you 5 years or 3 years or whatever for this weed, candy, and cocaine. they're going to say, give us a bigger fish. Who you work for? Now, the problem is when you see, and I mean it rhetorically, they already know who he works for. But when they see a bag of cocaine, they probably think, oh, he has this intent to distribute, intent to sell. Nope. They just do that much coke. He's always carrying coke. He's always carrying dope. He's always carrying pills, according to former bodyguards of his. Names shall remain nameless, but y'all know who they are. So it is not a complicated it is not a complicated puzzle. There's a lot of dope, a lot of coke, excuse me, and it could be recreational, in which case the police really don't care that much. They don't even go looking around there. But what they're going to say is, you know what, you're looking at 10 years, you're looking at 5 years, whatever shit. You could tell them 3 years, 2 years. But if you tell me what Diddy was doing on this such and such night, if you give me the info on Diddy, blah, 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 got you. We got you. Say less. He's likely going to take that deal. And if he's likely to take that deal, what does he know? How well does he know it? And what can be done to stop him from snitching? What can be done from stopping him from taking Diddy under? Because if he does, then they're going to look at Diddy, and Diddy's going to be like, well, you know what? This ain't all on me. Let me tell you who the big fish is. Let me tell you this, blah, 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 blah. And a whole network of people, a whole web of people could get caught up in some crazy stuff. So Diddy's assistant getting a felony charge is not a big deal on its own. But if he got one, I'm saying if, because I don't know. But if Lil Rod is right and he got one to save Diddy, does Diddy throw him a bag of money? Does he do what allegedly happened with Shine, where Shine just takes the L? And I don't know if that's true or not. I'm just saying that's the allegations from a lot of people. Like, what does Puff do? What does Diddy do in this situation? It's not clear what to do, but it's clear that Diddy will do anything not to end up in jail. He'll do anything to survive. So somebody getting thrown under somebody's bus, that's all I know. Somebody, I'm going to say it again, somebody's getting thrown under somebody's bus. All right, y'all. One more story, and then I'll leave y'all alone for the night. Some of y'all going to hate this story. Some of y'all going to love this story. But Caitlin Clark, quickly becoming my favorite basketball player in the world. She signs a deal with Nike. Let me say that again, because I got this Diddy banner up, and I don't want there to be no confusion later. Caitlin Clark, in my estimation, the best college women's basketball player in the country, she just signed a big deal with Nike, a huge deal with Nike. It was worth $28 million over 8 years. They're going to give her that much money and her own signature shoe. This is the richest sponsorship contract for a women's basketball player. That is wild. That is wild. And look, she deserves it. She absolutely deserves it. I ain't mad at it. I want Caitlin Clark to thrive. $28 million when she hasn't played a day in the WNBA makes sense. She's marketable. She's a big star. She's a rock star. She's an extraordinary basketball player. She's going to be great at every level, period. Full stop. So she deserves the money. Some people say, why doesn't Candace Parker get those kind of deals? Why doesn't Maya Moore get those kinds of deals? This isn't just about talent, even though I think she's got as much as anybody. It's about marketability. And Caitlin Clark is an underdog. America loves an underdog. So people love a fish out of water. Tiger Woods was a star because he's a phenomenal golfer in his prime. Maybe the best we've ever seen. Certainly in the top 5. But what also made Tiger compelling was that he was competing in a milieu, in a context where people like him weren't supposed to win. They weren't even legible. People couldn't even see Tiger Woods as a golfer. So that made a bunch of us, not just black people, black and white people, go, that's my guy, because he's kicking ass and surprising people. Whenever you see a fish out of water, ostensibly, you root for it, if you're under that logic. So Caitlin Clark is phenomenal, but she's also a white girl busting a whole bunch of Negroes' ass every time she get on that court, jaying their heads off, doing all kinds of crazy passes, looking like Magic Johnson and Steph Curry at the same time. Like, I get it. So I'm very happy that Caitlin Clark got this deal, because this is the money that she deserves. This is the money that keeps her from having to travel around the world like Brittany Griner, where you risk incarceration, where you risk health, where you risk all this stuff because people don't want you there. And that might be, anyway, that's a whole other conversation. But Caitlin Clark absolutely deserves that big money, and I'm glad that she got it. But I don't want to ignore the fact that she had a big opportunity with the big three. If you remember, Caitlin Clark had a big opportunity with the big three. A while back, Ice Cube invited Caitlin Clark to join the WNBA. Why? Because it's widely reported, widely known that the highest paid draft pick in the WNBA, in this case, it would be Caitlin, is only going to make $70-some thousand a year. So there was a logic to why Caitlin would have taken Ice Cube and his offer. And if you don't know, Ice Cube is not just a great rapper, one of the greatest rappers of all time. He also is the founder of the Big Three, which is a 3-on-3 half-court basketball league that mostly occupied by retired NBA players, and increasingly a small number of women. And Ice Cube said, hey, Caitlin, why don't you come here? Caitlin turned it down and moved forward to the WNBA, where she'll be playing for Indiana. But now we got a window into just what they were offering her. They weren't offering Caitlin Clark no mediocre contract. They were offering her $15 million. $15 million. But I'm not done. The offer would have paid her $10 million in salary over 2 years, plus, quote, a percentage of the team. That's right, a percentage of team ownership worth millions. 50% of merchandising revenues from her name and likeness. That's the NIL stuff, and ownership of a Big Three documentary. Ownership of a Big Three documentary. You know what they're going to give her for that documentary? Another 7 figures, so at least another $1 million. So the offer that Ice Cube made to her wasn't whack, because people said clearly Ice Cube didn't offer enough. That wasn't the problem. Ice Cube offered a bunch, and again, he was competing with $76,535 that the NBA was offering. So people say, well, why would you make $76,000 if you could make millions and millions? The answer is, one, she's a competitor. She's a warrior. She wants to be the best. She wants to play against the best. The best women's basketball players are not in the Big Three. They're not in Ice Cube's league. I have my own personal reasons why I don't want her to play in the Big Three. I don't think it will make the Big Three better. I don't think it'll make Caitlin Clark's career better. Okay. I just don't know if she'll shine there. But I love what Ice Cube is doing. I love his ambition. I love his reach. He's going to pull back something great very, very soon. But Caitlin Clark rejecting the deal from Ice Cube was not a stupid move, no matter what anybody says. Also, I guarantee you that all that money she got from Nike, the $20+ million she got from Nike, probably was contingent upon her playing in the WNBA. Right? Nike's not going to give you a bunch of money to play in the Big Three. It's just a fact. They want to build up the sport. They want to create more fans, more viewers. And the way to do that is to have Caitlin Clark in the WNBA. Also, her dream her whole life was not to play 3-on-3 half-court men's basketball. I don't want to reinforce this idea that a woman athlete is only legit if she can beat a dude. So I think it's also beauty in saying, look, I don't need to be anywhere but the WNBA because that's home for me. Take endorsements off the table. Even if it was just going to be a leaner summer or tougher financial times, you still do the WNBA. You still got 9 months to play elsewhere. And I know the women shouldn't have to do that. They should be able to make their 6 and 7 figures and be fine. I hear all of that. But if I'm Caitlin Clark, I'm not letting myself be an example of something, a cautionary tale. No. Very simple. Her dream was to play in the WNBA, so she plays in the WNBA. She doesn't want to make $76,000 a year, so she got a gajillion dollars in endorsements that were probably dependent again upon her being in the WNBA. So at the end of the day, for me, it's like, look, y'all, stop hating. I know everybody who has a critique isn't hating, but a lot of y'all just be hating on her, and it's unnecessary. And I don't want to sound like Uncle Ruckus, but please just. You know what I mean? There's so many things to criticize about her. There's so many things to criticize about the league. There's so many things to criticize about the WNBA. But please, let's not pretend that this young woman isn't talented and brilliant, but also that her decision to join the WNBA and to take the check that might have been bigger in the big three, but to take that, let me put it differently. Caitlin Clark may be trailblazing. Angel Reese may be trailblazing. Those young women on some Magic and Bird type time might be doing something that we can't even imagine yet for the sport. So instead of criticizing her for not taking big three money, which I think, again, would be a terrible idea for all the reasons, we should be celebrating her for opening some doors. Now, there's plenty of Black women athletes who we should be celebrating. There's plenty of highly talented former Black WNBA players who we should be honoring and revering. So I'm not saying all eyes on Caitlin. I'm just saying let's not pretend she ain't doing something dope, because she absolutely is. Anyway, y'all, thanks for watching Night School. I got to shout y'all out some more. My brother Jeremiah Muhammad donated another 5 memberships on top of the first 5 that he donated. C. Shatha, my sister, donated another 5. James Perry, the junior, donated. Excuse me, not donated. You became a member of the channel. Thank you for joining, my brother. We love you. We appreciate you. Kimi Aboyade Acosta just gifted 5 memberships as well. Y'all don't know what y'all are in for, what y'all are. I can show you better than I can tell you, man. Thank y'all for watching the channel. Sorry, y'all, it ain't my night. Thank y'all for joining. Thank y'all for sharing. I appreciate y'all is the point. Hit the like button if you haven't already. I need YouTube algorithms to know that y'all are rocking with me. I need y'all to know how important that is. So if you haven't hit the like button, hit it once, hit it twice, 3 times a lady, whatever. Also, family, hit the join button. As I said earlier, I appreciate the growth of this channel. I'm excited by it, but we got a long way to go. And the way that we can get the support we need is obviously when you hit the like button, obviously when you hit the subscribe button, which we could definitely use. But also if you can join, even at the $4.99 or $5 a month rate, it goes a long way toward helping us build what we need to do. So I appreciate you. If you don't want to go through YouTube or these other things, you can always go directly here. You go to Cash App, $MLHTV. You go to Venmo at MLHTV, but you can drop something in. YouTube don't get no cut. Nobody else gets a cut. It's just, you already know. All right, family, I'll see you tomorrow. Peace.